Hello, this is Ramirez with Tidewater Renaissance Fighting Arts. And today I wanted to take a little time to talk about my experiences at the Deed of the Swan in LaCygne, Kansas. So I went to my first Deed of Arms kind of not knowing what to expect, but knowing that I wanted part of my goal this year, along with getting into harness and Harnischfechten, was that I was going to do a Harnischfechten tournament. And a Harnischfechten tournament is generally called a Deed of Arms. And it was an amazing experience. And I think that the people that do that event really need a good shout out about what the event was like. And for those of you curious who are like, well, that would be a bit of a challenge to do. What is it like? What would I get out of it? So, as a new person, I knew it was an in-period event and that you were supposed to be dressed in appropriate historical attire. And so I did have that, and I packed everything that I had that would basically work for that event. I had a friend go with me, so I had to pack extra stuff for him to wear at that event. And so I went out there. It was a long drive. It's about 17, 18 hours, and then with breaks, like 24 hours. I think going out there, we took a break at a hotel, and then we did the whole 24 hours straight going home. So, yeah, it was a long trip, and I live on the east coast of Virginia, so literally miles away from the ocean here to get to the Midwest. It was a trip. Good time, and we arrived, and the event, if you have a choice, you can stay on site, you can camp there. They have cabins, and then of course you could go to a local hotel and just commute back and forth. I opted to stay in the cabins. The cabins were really actually quite nice for cabins. They had air conditioning, no television or anything, but you really don't need it. You're at an event. Beautiful campground. Just there are wild deer running around. It's very, very rustic, but as I said, camping. They have a limited number of cabins. You do have to kind of reserve them early, and I think they're like $70 a day for every day that you're there. So we stayed there the whole time. The cabins did have a full kitchen. They had like an outdoor deck. It was very nice if you were just staying there just to stay there. The event covered all the meals, so while we're there, 3 squares a day, and most of them were historical in nature. I don't know that the morning biscuits and gravy was as historical as the other meals, but it was still very good, and all the food was very good. They conclude the event with a huge feast under a big tent under the stars. It was really, really extraordinary. The food they served for the main feast on Saturday night was absolutely fantastic. The meat pie and pears and wine syrup, it was just amazing. But beyond the food, if you go, just like you might go to other tournaments and things, there are classes. And not all of them are martial. They had a hat making class. I did not make this hat there. This is something I've already had. But they did have a hat making class. They had classes on dagger work. They had classes on the fighting concept of feeling. And that's some really great instructors. Bob Charette, who is one of the kind of godfathers of Harnischfechten in America, was there teaching classes. So it was a really good opportunity to learn. And then there were tournaments. There were a total of 4 tournaments. They had a tournament that one of the organizations that was there ran. And it was basically no long swords, no poleaxes, and it was a Blousfechten event. So they had spears, side sword, I believe they had rapier, but they specifically didn't allow you to use longsword. So it was an interesting tournament. Next, they had the Squires list. And I think that if you're new, Squires list is kind of important because That's where they verify that you have enough skill to fight in the Knights list. They also allow you not to have a completed kit. So if you don't have full armor, but you still are working on your Harnischfechten and you want to go out and you want to enter a tournament, this is the tournament for you because you can wear as much armor as you have and then go ahead and fight people that also, because they had a 50% armor requirement. So if you did have a full suit of armor, which I did, you had to actually take off parts of it to give yourself vulnerabilities for the other squires to exploit. And it was an interesting tournament. It was a good time. I said I did all of them. And that is what also certifies you to then compete in the Knights list, which is the next day. So the next day they had the Knights list, and that's for fully armored Knights to enter in. And there you can fight all the weapons, any of the weapons. And I had a good time. I got to fight pretty much everything. I tried to get out my dagger in one fight, didn't quite work out. But that's okay because I'd shown them the door, so that was okay. But I did fight poleaxe. I fought sword. I fought spear. It was a lot of fun. And at one point, I think in the Squires list, I got thrown. I think I got thrown twice. I think I got thrown at Blossfechten tournament, and then I got thrown again in either the Knights list or the Squires list. And one of the amazing things, and I'll tell you, well, let me just complete talking about the tournaments. The last tournament was a Blossfechten tournament. A lot of people were tired after the Knights list, but for those of us that were like, we haven't fought enough, and I had traveled way too far for way too long not to do everything I could. So I participated in the Blossfechten tournament at the end after the Knights list. And that was good because at that point, a lot of us were really chill because we were all burned out over the Knights list. And we're just able to have a lot of fun. A lot of different weapons. So I fought side sword. We fought spears. I think some people fought. A lot of people they had a wheel of death. Just it was a wheel like you spin like it just goes around and selects something, and they had all the weapons. So you spun the wheel and decided what weapon you were going to use. You didn't have to do it, but I know a lot of people had fun doing that during that Blossfechten tournament. So yes, they had the wheel of death. And I have to say, one of the things that really took me back, as someone who's done HEMA tournaments before and hadn't done a Harnischfechten tournament, a deed of arms, is that while there are judges there to mark who managed to successfully hit the other person, those judges and wins and losses do not directly define who wins the tournament. And this was for all 4 tournaments. In all 4 tournaments, everyone kind of gathered at the first one, the one that was held by one of the organizations, and you vote for who is the quote-unquote greatest amongst equals. So it's up to your peers to decide who wins, who is the victor of the tournament. And I was surprised because that first tournament, I was actually runner-up, and I'd never done any of these before, and that really kind of shocked me. But yeah, you vote, and you talk about the valorous deeds, who fought with prowess, who fought with honor, and you come up with the most virtuous, that individual who has shown the most knightly virtues throughout the tournament, and they are basically elected as the winner. When we did the Knights tournament, we had 2 teams. We had a team of the locals and the non-locals. And so anyone from this side could pick anyone from this side and fight them with any weapon that they both agreed on and to whatever terms. If they wanted to fight to 3 points, if they wanted to fight to 5 points, if they wanted to fight to wrestle the ground or just to set, you could all decide that. And everyone would watch and participate. And at the end, the 2 teams would go their separate ways. And this side would decide who was the greatest amongst peers of the people over here. And this side would decide, they would talk and discuss who showed the greatest value. They would decide, they would vote on who they thought the best person on this side was. And it wasn't necessarily who won the most matches. It was how they won, how they fought. Did they fight a lot of people? Did they use different weapons? There was discussion. And that kind of really blew me away. I'm used to lists where it's like, okay, here's the point. You lose 2 matches, you're out of this tournament branching and stuff like that. The pool eliminations. There was no elimination. You keep fighting. You can fight as many people as you wanted, or as few as you wanted. You could fight to a victory condition, and you could say, "Well, I already won, but I'd rather keep fighting. So let's throw the victory out and keep fighting, even though I'm risking losing when I've already won." Because there were things that you could do, like throwing someone to the ground or showing them the door meant you automatically won. And you could say, well, yeah, throw that out. We're going to keep fighting. So that was just, once again, it was really cool, really different from many other tournaments. The other thing that really kind of struck me was that we were all dressed up and we all were there. A lot of times when I've gone to tournaments where there's a historical component, you have a process to become recognized as a knight, or there will be a king or a prince or a duke or this, that, and the other. And here there were no titles beyond knight. And they treated it like a medieval tournament. If you showed up and you had armor and you were fighting, you were a knight. Now, yes, there were more experienced knights. There were newer knights. There were younger knights. There were older knights. I'm one of the weird ones. I was an old, younger knight because I have less experience. But everyone was treated as equals. And the whole idea of this, you vote for the greatest amongst equals, was amazingly cool. Because you don't have that pretense of, well, I've been playing this game for so long, and you need to bow to me, or you can't wear this belt, or you can't do this. You can wear whatever friggin' armor you want. You wear whatever color belt you want. You could wear, probably be dumb, but you could wear a crown if you wanted to. I don't think they'd have a real issue. There were no rules against it. But no one did it because it would be counter to the point. It was a knight is a knight is a knight. And if you go to that event and you're in your armor, you're a knight amongst knights. Period. And I have to say, I really liked that. You were made to feel like you were equals. And that is something that really, it gave you chivalric virtues that I think a lot of other places just don't generally offer. So I thought that was kind of a real personal moment for me in observing that and experiencing it that really was profound. There were 1 or 2 people who clearly had squires, people who either helped them, get dressed or that they do train and they take on that role. But above and beyond that, there were no real titles. And that was really cool that everyone was kind of treated equally as peers. So I think when it came to the takeaways for me, that was a really powerful one, having spent a lot of time in the SCA or in Markland or in other groups. So I would recommend the event. It's not cheap. I think registration for the whole event was $250 per person. And then I had to also add in that I rented out a cabin for the entire experience. So it's probably a little more expensive than your average HEMA tournament. I don't think, with the hotel costs and things like that, it kind of balances out with some of the HEMA tournaments I've been to. Also, most HEMA tournaments don't cover meals, so the fact that your registration also covered your food was really nice. And I would say that, yes, the experience is definitely worth the cost. They don't, I believe, have a major website. They do have a Facebook page, and I will link that below so that if you are curious, you can kind of go to that page. They haven't released the information for 2025 yet, so right now it's just all the stuff that just happened at the event. But I hope that it's something that if you're into the idea of Harnischfechten, you might look into attending. It's fairly small in comparison to like the numbers you might see at a HEMA tournament, but the experience overall is really very powerful. It was very powerful for me. Um, as I said, they do require that you have some sort of medieval attire during the event. You can't go in like kind of street clothes, so that is a little different. It might take some getting used to. They did say they have a small amount of loaner clothes, so if you're really adamant about going and you don't have any period clothing, you could always reach out to them for that. All right, once again, my name is Ramirez. I'm with Tidewater Renaissance Fighting Arts. We're based out of Norfolk, Virginia. If you're interested, I will leave information below about our club, and I will see you in the next video.